Anyone on D2?
No one on D2?
I'm just queued in.
Oh, okay, go ahead. You go first, and I'll go after you.
Go ahead.
I don't want to go first. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Acting Mayor Scott. I just had a couple of questions for administration. Just hoping to perhaps shed a little bit more light on this, because there's been some questions in the community. So I'm just wondering, I don't know, Mr. Babich, if it's you or perhaps more appropriately through to Mr. McIntosh, just regarding how much gravel was taken.
Your Worship, through the Councillor Ramsey, there's approximately 13 tandem truckloads of gravel that were stockpiled at the end of 4th Avenue for our 3rd Avenue water main project. Exact cubic meters, I don't have that, but approximately probably 10 yards per truck.
Thank you for that. And you said the intended purpose of the gravel was for a water main project. Was that project delayed because of having to order and replace the gravel?
Your Worship, I can't say that it was delayed, but obviously the stockpiling of the material includes trucking time and staff time to load and unload and prepare it for future use.
Thank you. So it was a loss to the city, effectively.
Your Worship, in summary, yes. Obviously, the gravel was intended for a capital project.
Thank you for that. Just some comments from me. We read in the report quite a brief legal note saying that asking for the investigation to be reopened for more information to come forward is not political interference. I believe that key details regarding this investigation seem to be missing. And we have a motion from council that's released that didn't pass. So it doesn't really provide, I think, a lot of information to the public. The report itself is a page and a half. So I don't know that this provides that much transparency around this, and why I have supported this motion and the ask for more information. So unfortunately, asking for more information to try and understand what happened and ensure this doesn't happen again wasn't supported. I think that we all have a duty to the taxpayers, and I am really, through this, was trying to ensure financial due diligence. For me, a crime was committed, property went missing, and in a year when inflation is high, when we have a significant tax levy before us, just exercising prudence and strong financial management for me is of the utmost importance. I viewed this action as strong risk management processes. Not all of my colleagues disagreed or agreed. Some disagreed. I respect the will of council on this decision, but I am regrettably disappointed. So I look forward to hearing what my colleagues have to say. Going first kind of sucks when we are talking about something like this, because kind of don't know what the consensus around the room is going to be or the comments are. So I might cue in again at the end if the chair allows it. So thank you.
Councillor Skaken.
Well, thanks, Your Worship. I'm the one that made the motion to close to make this public. I don't know how many meetings we dealt with this in closed, how much it cost for lawyers. I would suspect several $1,000s. for lawyers, minimum. So when we talk about financial due diligence, I have never in all my years seen a resolution in a closed meeting of council directing administration to formally request the RCMP reopen an investigation to pursue this theft, when our manager of communications posted on the weekend on social media, it appears 18 truckloads of gravel, and I don't know if I've ever been told the amount, 18 truckloads, may have been taken to the Lower Patricia encampment, but it's not confirmed. So, first of all, can the city confirm that there was an actual theft of the gravel? If it went from the city, the spot where it was dumped, to Moccasin Flats, is that a theft of city gravel?
Your Worship, we did report to the RCMP, and following the conclusion of their investigation, evidence was insufficient to support a criminal charge. So it was determined that the gravel had not been removed from the site, but appeared to have been repurposed on nearby city property to assist with the settlement of homeless persons displaced from Millennium Park.
There you go. So we're gonna haul the superintendent to a closed meeting of council and supposedly ask him questions about this alleged gravel theft that never occurred. I think it's an absolute embarrassment. If I was and I tore a strip off council in a closed meeting about this earlier in the fall, and I said I thought it was absolutely inappropriate. It wasn't fair to staff, and it wasn't fair to the RCMP to have them come in here and explain why they didn't charge someone when we get people murdered in this community, we get people robbed, we get businesses downtown that face vandalism costs. And when does council ever say to the RCMP, we want you to reopen the investigation, we want to make sure you charge someone? To me, there's no difference between a business downtown property and city property. Everybody in this community is paying taxes. So we spent a ton of money on this. Like I said, in all my years, and we talk about prudence, I mean, the RCMP are fighting 24/7, 365 to nail the drug dealers, the crack houses, the people that are getting murdered. We had a lady downtown in a business violently assaulted 2 or 3 days ago, and luckily a sheriff walked by and helped her out. And yet we want to put our resources of the RCMP into coming to a private meeting of council and saying, we want you to reopen an investigation. Thank God the lawyer said what he said in close, and I wish I could say exactly what he said, but the motion is clear that council direct administration to formally request the RCMP reopen the investigation to pursue this theft and mismanagement. Well, it turns out we don't even know if it's a theft. I feel absolutely terrible for the RCMP. I'm embarrassed as a city councillor that we went down this road. We spent several meetings talking about this, but I am grateful that council supported releasing this, because the crap that goes on in some of the closed meetings is unbelievable. I got a couple other things to say, and I'll wrap it up, and then it sounds like we're going to be able to go around and get back in the queue again. You know, we had that theft of $700,000 several years ago from that online scam. We lost $375,000. We got some back, then we had an insurance claim. But when did council say, we want the RCMP to reopen that? We want the RCMP to charge the people that stole the taxpayers' money? Not a word. And yet we're doing all this behind the scenes, and people are wondering, we're going to have these huge tax increases this year. The RCMP want 4 more members, and we're telling the RCMP, well, you know what? We think you need to investigate this this so-called gravel theft. For me, is just, in my opinion, it's political interference. It doesn't belong in these chambers. And I felt I sent out emails. I hope people FOI some of this stuff, but I'm telling you, I don't think it's right. And I just have to ask administration, how did they determine it was 18 truckloads of gravel? Was that ever disclosed to council? To administration?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Skaken. So the information that I received from staff was that it was 13 tandem truckloads of gravel. We stockpile it at that site, so we're available. It was close to 3rd and Victoria.
Yeah.
It was easy haul for the backfill process. When you're dumping a truckload, it's a separate pile. We had a loader down there that was stacking it up, so it would be in one consolidated pile. This was on a Friday. Staff returned to the site on Monday, and the gravel was not where they had stacked it or stockpiled it.
And you know what, I will say, if someone took it and it was unauthorized and they used it in Moccasin Flats, I do not agree with that. That's city property, but that's no reason to get a hold of the RCMP and suggest they come to a closed meeting and explain why they never charged anybody. And really, and as I said, we're just going to ask them questions in a closed meeting. The fact that we bring them here and invite them formally into a closed meeting and ask them why they never charged someone, I think is absolutely insane. I don't even know where the hell we're going. Like, why would we spend those kind of resources, and what kind of message does it say to the community that, well, you know what, we're going to haul the RCMP in here because some gravel got taken or misappropriated. If there wasn't even a theft, I'm glad they never charged anybody. Who the hell are they going to charge? It's insane. I've never seen anything like it, and I reserve my right, just like Councillor Ramsey, to get back in again, but apparently no one has nothing to say.
Councillor Sampson.
I don't. I'll just go on with my comments. I'll refrain from commenting on that. I will start though by saying there's a summary of the legal advice in this report, and I appreciate it because I think what's being portrayed by one of my colleagues and what the reality from what the legal counsel informed us is very different. We are allowed to ask questions of the RCMP just like anybody else. We are the victim of what we thought was a theft at first, and now we're hearing that the investigation showed the gravel was located at a nearby site. But when gravel of the cities is placed somewhere and then it's gone, the investigation led us to find it is now somewhere else. And whether that's on another city property or not, it was not where staff left it. And an investigation needed to take place to exonerate staff. I mean, at first, you know, we should make sure that that's clear. And then to investigate what took place. And I'll stand behind the fact that it should be investigated. I'm glad the RCMP performed an investigation. And let me be clear, the intent of the motion is to ask the RCMP to reconsider because they came back and said the evidence they found did not support criminal charges. So the motion that was made and closed, which, by the way, nobody objected to this being closed at the time, and we have talked about it. We're now bringing it public, and I support that, is either reconsider ending your investigation, and if not, come and explain to us what you found. What did you find? Where did it go? Well, we know it's not supporting criminal charges. Well, why is that? Well, because the gravel went from one city property to another. Okay, but nobody with the authority to authorize that did it. So as far as we know right now. So that's of concern. So how did the gravel get there? It's still a cost to the city. And I believe it's not just imperative of council, but it's our job, it's our duty to be good stewards of the city's assets. And this is a cost. You know, losing this gravel, truckloads of gravel, isn't just the expense of the gravel, which is, you know, relatively significant, thousands and thousands of dollars, but there's the cost of potential delays in project, the transportation of the gravel, repurchasing the gravel, retransporting the gravel. That's a concern. It's thousands of dollars. If we want to stand up to crime, which I do time and time again in this community, I've been one of the tougher councillors on crime, and I've taken heat for it. But if we want to stand up to crime, we need to be leaders in that and say a crime has occurred against the city, and we're going to do everything we can to pursue it. We were a victim of theft. And I still believe that. I believe we're a victim of theft, whether it's left on our other property and being used for something else. By the way, a property that has been squatted on and commandeered by the homeless folks in our community, that's a problem. That's no longer a city asset, that gravel right now. So my question, I guess, would be through to staff. What information do we have about the investigation? What were the findings? Who was interviewed? What members of staff? What do we know about this investigation and where it's at so far? I now understand that it's been identified the gravel is at Lower Patricia, but what else and what other information has the RCMP provided the city with respect to this investigation?
Your Worship, I'll just provide a few bullet points from the RCMP. So like I mentioned, it was determined that the gravel had not been removed from the site. It just had been repurposed on the nearby city property from 3rd to Moccasin Flats. Investigators interviewed several individuals, including city workers, local politicians, and potential witnesses. who were identified as having been present around the time frame when the gravel was removed. Accounts from witnesses residing in the encampment provided information that a volunteer with a skid steer had moved the dirt for them, but they did not know the identity of that volunteer. So in closing, the investigation did not yield evidence that definitively determined who moved the gravel, or if they did so independently, or if it was under the direction of another person.
Thank you very much. I still have concerns about this. To drop it and say we're not going to pursue it any further, there's evidence that doesn't support criminal charges, and I understand why. City assets moved from one city property to another. I get it. It's not criminal. It's not technically theft, but as far as I'm concerned, it is wrong that our asset as a city, the taxpayer's asset, has been, I think, stolen and used for something else, which has cost the taxpayer thousands of dollars, and it's our job to pursue that to its full extent. I'm satisfied with the legal opinion that we got back. I'm glad that there's a summary of it here, that we are allowed to ask questions of the RCMP. We're allowed to ask for more information. The RCMP will determine what they can and cannot share with anyone, including the City of Prince George. But we are allowed to ask questions. We are allowed to seek information and find out what happened, especially as the victim of this. It's our job as councillors to protect city assets and to be good stewards, and I want to get to the bottom of what happened with this. I think it's egregious that we would just turn a blind eye and ignore the fact that thousands of dollars of city property has gone missing, and we have evidence. So we're hearing that somebody with a skid steer moved it. You know, I was on a ride along with the RCMP, and we went through to a call at Lower Patricia, and one of the folks even came up to me and said, "What do you guys want to know more about this gravel?" And this was shortly after the gravel was, you know, taken or whatever. You want to find out more? And I just said, "No, I don't." They said, "Well, you know, there's lots more you can be finding, but not from me. We're not going to rat you out," so on and so forth. And so I think there's more information out there, and I think it could be I think more can be done on this. I respect the will of council not to continue, but I don't agree with it. So anyways, Acting Mayor, I think my stance is I think asking questions is the right thing to do. And I'm disappointed that we're not going to continue to pursue getting to the bottom of this, but that's the will of council.
Councillor Frizzell.
Well, thank you, Acting Mayor Scott. I'll just be quick. It's on a related issue. I understand the point that Councillor Skaken was making about pursuit or not pursuit, but on the issue of the fraud that happened with IT through to Mr. Babich, my recollection was that we did have a vigorous and long pursuit of those funds, but could you refresh my memory?
Yes, but I may need some help from Mr. Dalio on this one in terms of the details. But yes, we did report the theft, obviously, and there was an investigation, and we did provide and cooperate with that investigation to try and determine how those funds were lost, and we vigorously pursued recovery of those funds, Your Worship, if that helps.
Thanks. Your point stands, Councillor Skaken. I just wanted to put that on. Thank you.
Anything else on D2 from anyone?
I'll just take it for a sec.
Go ahead.
Just to Councillor Sampson's thing about us turning a blind eye. No one's turning a blind eye. The RCMP did their job. Didn't find that there was a theft. They moved on. They're doing what they're supposed to do, out solving actual crime in the community. Thank you.
Motion to receive for information the report dated January 2nd.
So moved.
My mistake. Councillor Clausen.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I just do want to correct the record. The legal counsel advice was that we do not have the authority to direct the RCMP to reopen or continue a criminal investigation. And then the motion proposed that was released was that we formally request the RCMP to reopen. So unless my eyes deceive me, That's what it says. So we did ask, that motion was directly in opposition to the legal counsel. But I did want to say I would request that I don't think we should spend a whole lot of time on this. We've already spent enough taxpayers' money on this, and time is money. And this is time and money that we are getting from our residents who are paying taxes, and the businesses and people who have had theft and are suffering from the conditions in our city, and especially our downtown, don't have access to those resources. But I would want to say, just before we move on to the next item, is that I think that there would be a fair amount of, I've heard a fair amount of hurt from especially First Nations people who make up the majority of people living in Moccasin Flats at being told that they are squatting. And I heard that expressed here, that people are squatting on that territory. And as we are on the land of the Lheidli that I've heard that expressed, that, you know, great hurt and upset when that term is being used in council. That's all. Thank you.
I would only add to that we've been told time and again that the majority of the people living on the streets of Prince George are not Lheidli. Language is language, and we must do better. Thank you. Councillor Sampson.
Thanks very much, Acting Mayor. I will say, Councillor Skaken is absolutely right. The RCMP did investigate, and they did come back and they said their evidence did not support criminal charges. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with our own problem. So that's what I'm getting at. Continue to investigate. What we didn't know at the time was the extent of what they found in their investigation. That was the request. Either reopen or reconsider. Request to reconsider closure of your investigation, or tell us more information. Now we have heard more information. But the fact is, it's now our problem, because the gravel went missing, and if there's not evidence that supports criminal charges, what does the evidence support? It means that a misappropriation of city asset has taken place. Who allowed for the city asset to be moved? That's what we need to get to the bottom of. It might not be a police matter, but there's still an issue here. Thousands of dollars of a city resource, a taxpayer asset, has been taken. And although it might not be criminal because it's moved, you know, technically because it's moved from one city property to another, that's still a big problem in my mind, because it wasn't allocated to the project it was supposed to, and it's cost the taxpayers thousands of dollars. It's inconvenienced staff, it's inconvenienced a project, and that's wrong. So that's a problem. Let's, you know, and I'll move to the next point. No, we did not direct the RCMP through this motion to do anything. The motion failed, so we didn't anyways, but last time I checked, the word request and the word direct are very different. We direct staff to bring back a report. We request for the RCMP to reconsider this. It's not the same thing. So I'm not sure, through to Mr. Babich, we have a summary of the legal opinion. Can we go in further depth about what the legal opinion said in this meeting? Because I'd love to.
Your Worship, no, not without further council authorization, and we would welcome the opportunity to provide advice before council provides that direction, Your Worship.
Great. It's a shame. All I'll say on that is I'm comfortable with the motion that was made in that meeting, and I remain comfortable with the motion that was made in that meeting. And there's no direction to the RCMP in that motion. The direction is that we request. That's about it. And if they decline, then just come and tell us what you got. What do you have? What information can you share with us about this, at the time, perceived theft that took place against the city? So, you know, we can spin it however we want, but it's not, we're not directing the RCMP in any way there, and that's not the intent. So let me be clear with my intent on the motion that I made. There was no direction made to the RCMP. You know what, I'll jump in with another question since I'm in here. I asked for what the RCMP did have. I'm curious to know if any details were provided on which staff or elected officials were interviewed, as the RCMP mentioned in those notes, through to Mr. Davey. I wasn't.
I don't have that level of detail, Your Worship.
So I'll volunteer at this table. I wasn't interviewed, but I opened it up to my colleagues to do the same. I wasn't interviewed by the RCMP regarding the theft of the gravel, but they did state that they interviewed staff and elected officials, so I'd be curious to know. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Ramsey.
Thanks, Acting Mayor Scott. I was just going to cue in regarding Councillor Klassen's comments. I do agree with Councillor Sampson regarding the wording, and I took it as a request, not a demand, which I thought the motion was in alignment with the legal opinion, which otherwise it wouldn't have been put on the floor. I wouldn't have supported it, quite frankly. So I just really wanted to reiterate that I think that distinction is important, and that I do view this motion as being part of in alignment with the legal opinion, and I am disappointed that the opinion in its entirety wasn't released. I will offer up that I was not interviewed in this investigation either, so I'll just leave it there. I think in this job we have to do what we think is right. I supported this because my values are that theft was wrong. When this was presented to us, it seemed like a theft. We didn't have additional information. I wanted more information to come forward. And even in this meeting tonight, more information has come forward that I wasn't aware of. So I think it's important for us to be able to ask questions, to really understand the full picture. And when my colleagues ask for more information to be supported, I am there to support them in that. So I think that it's disappointing that we didn't have this information that we have today. We might not know what has ever happened and how it moved from one site to another, but I think this was a very challenging piece for me personally. I think that it's a little frustrating, quite frankly. People sent images and memes and gifs to my family making fun of me for asking this question in the public, and I think that that's disgusting. And it's really disappointing because I'm here to do a job. I'm here to ask questions. I'm here to get more information and make a decision that is the best for the taxpayers. That's what I'm doing. I'm not doing any more, any less. I'm doing this because of the taxpayers. And quite frankly, it's a selfless, thankless job. And it's so difficult. I don't know that I've slept a full night in months. So to be raked over the coals for asking a question and supporting a colleague, I just find really frustrating. And you know what? If this is where it ends, this is where it ends. But on principle, I couldn't let this not be asked. I couldn't not support this question because it sets a precedent that it's okay. It's okay for this to happen with city assets, and it's okay for it to happen again. And that I don't support. So this is where we are. This is where we're at. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you. And my comment for this evening on this subject would be that many people at this table have been on the wrong side of a question and have not enjoyed it. Have not enjoyed it. Have not enjoyed it. But questions still get asked. If they're not asked by us, they're asked by the people that we serve, because that's the way it works. Is there anything further then on item D2?
Receipt.
Move receipt. Councillor Frizzell, Councillor Palillo. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Receipt on D3.